If you like Star Trek, then boy, you should check out my stuff. I got so much other stuff in the works as well. But yeah, today I'm going to be we're going to be taking a look at my finished exterior recreation of the Strange New Worlds Enterprise, and I will eventually figure out what to do with the internal space for the saucer section and the hull, whether I end up doing an interior. So first things first, there's 12 subgrids. Two of those are the rotating Bizarre collectors, but yeah. So this thing's quite PCU intensive and block intensive, and that's just because I use a small grid to really allow me to recreate aspects of the ship properly. So the impulse engine module is one of the biggest small grid assemblies I've ever made and attached to a large grid ship. Everything is attached securely with either rotors or hinges, and it is all named. Everything, every little thing, rotor, hinges, propulsion, nav lights, it's all named and turned off in the terminal, but you can go and take a look at stuff for yourself. So to understand which way you're spawning in the ship, the two squares there at the back, the left of your screen, the top, those are the end caps. Here at the bottom is the deflector dish and the Bizarre collectors and the impulse engine. So yeah, when you see it facing like this, it's going to spawn end caps left of the screen, saucer section right. But yeah, and then that's helpful to know. It's annoying when there are no subgrids on a build and it won't show actually which way it's spawning in. So when you spawn in, it's going to be facing whichever way. So that's a helpful thing to explain. But yeah, so here she is, my professional recreation of the U.S.S. Enterprise, as seen in Star Trek Discovery and Star Trek Strange New Worlds. I am immensely proud of this thing. It is the most serious and accurate recreation of the Strange New Worlds Enterprise built to date in Space Engineers, both on Steam and Xbox. But that's just because I'm an absolute tryhard when it comes to this stuff. I don't settle for decent, close enough. I settle for exact. And yeah, this thing is intense on its detail and its accuracy. But that's just because I care. There actually are two improvements that I might make to the exterior down the road. That's if I do decide to do them, and that would be the top and bottom saucer domes. Because if I did them in small grid, I could shape them perfectly and detail them perfectly. But as it is right now, there's a lot of subgrids already, so they are just represented in large grid. But everything is shaped and sculpted and detailed the exact way it's meant to be, while also still working with the large grid majority of the design. But yeah. So the amount of time that went into perfecting every aspect of this thing, getting all the proportions, all of the details, and just every aspect, everything exact, was immense. When I started the recreation, I started with the nacelles and the pylons, and then eventually, when I had worked out things to the point where I thought it was perfect at that time, I established the hull. And then I built that out, and then I built both pylons officially, because I originally established one nacelle and one pylon, and then had to go and do the hull, figure that out, and then, using symmetry mode, it all came together officially, the pylons officially, the nacelles officially, and then I still went through another 50 adjustments on coming up with the exact formula to make up the pylons, the cutout. So every angle is exactly how it's meant to be. Every proportion is perfect as absolutely possible. Even the blinking nav lights and running lights, the sequence ends, it's all as exact and as flawless as it can possibly be. So if it's not perfect, it's the closest thing attainable to it. Yeah, I did not skip out on anything when it came to mixing the small grid with the large grid. It just really adds that level of quality that you'd never be able to obtain in large grid. And whatnot with a model of this size. I'm especially proud of the impulse engine. That was the thing I needed to sort of conquer. I was genuinely intimidated by the complexity of this design. It all worked out in the end, but it still took a lot of time to establish this and make it exactly how it's supposed to be. It's just a decently complex design for an impulse engine module, especially for a Constitution class impulse engine module. So I really had to wrap my head around the design, and that took time for me to actually recreate. But it's exactly how it's meant to be. So very proud of that. But yeah, so like I said, the saucer section and the hull are empty. There are two flying positions from the hull and the saucer. So here, you open this up, and you've got a captain's chair. It's as simple as that. The hull and the saucer are a shell. I can't say that enough, so there's nothing going on there. However, this does have all of the weapons properly laid out, as well as welders to repair all of those weapons, and it is fully set to fly. So it's got thrusters and it's got gyros, and that's all contained inside the nacelles. And on top of that, the nacelles are completely filled with actual internal technology. So all of the warp coils and all of the other warp technology that actually, make the warp nacelles function in Star Trek universe, that is recreated, built in large grid inside of those nacelles, and we'll take a closer look at that in a little bit. But first of all, I want to explain all of the commands that you have in this captain's chair. This one's fully laid out. The one side of the hull, which we'll take a look at after this, isn't. But yeah, so up on the D-pad, you can turn the beacon on or off. Left, right, and down on the D-pad, you have turn all welders on, turn all phasers on, and turn all photons off. So there's the 2 photon torpedoes in the front of the saucer section, and the Pike Enterprise does not have any aft photons. But yeah. So here we have all of our jump drive commands. If you press left, that will increase the distance. Right, that will decrease the distance. And down is to jump. Now, what this lighting setup is, now this is actually really cool. Yeah, so if you turn that on or off, that is a display feature that you can have whether you want that lighting on or not, as it's not always on in the ship. It's most noticeably when the ship is traveling at high speed or at warp speed specifically. But yeah, so that is a lighting feature that you can bring online, and all 3 sections of the lighting. There is the outside lights around the main grills before the pylon cutouts, or after the cut. Yeah, I guess it is before the pylon cutouts. So yeah, you have the outside lighting that you can see. Then there are internal lights that make up the radius of that ring, and then you have the lighting under the rails, on the back of the nacelles. So those are all named and whatnot, but this command, this group, allows you to bring all online at a time. So you can choose to have that whether you prefer it or not. But also, if you're about to jump, then you can right before you jump, you can bring them on. It's like, and you can use that as a cool warp effect, right? So if you have them turned off, you're just about to jump. As you make the jump, you bring them online, and then yeah. So that's a feature. Then the next 2 pages, the last 2 pages, let me explain these. So this page right here, this is for your top phasers. So I turned off all the phasers, and now if I only want to bring on a couple banks at a time, right? Because the way phaser banks work is not every single weapon fires at once. So this is so you can control them. They're all individually named and grouped and whatnot, each 2 banks at a time. So if you press up on the D-pad, you'll bring the top phaser banks online. If you press left on the D-pad, you'll bring the left top phaser banks online. And if you press right on the D-pad, you'll bring the right top phaser banks online. Now if you go to the next page, you'll bring the up is to bring the underside forward phaser banks, left is to bring the underside left phaser banks, right is to bring the underside right phaser banks, and down in the D-pad will bring the underside rear phaser banks. And it's as simple as that. So when you have all the weapons turned off at once, if you only want, your forward and your left to fire, because those are the banks that actually have a line of sight at that point, you can bring that online, and then that way it's like, it's not too chaotic, and it looks cool. You can control the combat, and you don't have to worry about your weapons getting destroyed while your other phaser banks aren't online, because there's welders, and so they'll always be in a constant state of repair as long as you have the welders on. Now the welders, just like the phasers and the photons, that affects all the weapons. So if you have them all on, they're all on. If you have them all off, they're all off, except for the phasers, which you can bring online independently. Okay, but yeah, so those are all the commands, and that's the whole point of doing this showcase. Not so I can give you a real inside look from the creator of the ship, but I can explain these little functions which you might not get, or you might not know, why all these commands are here, if you if you didn't watch this. Also, if you hold your stick in and you go A and B, that's how you cycle through the pages, in case you don't know how to do that. I didn't know about that for a long time. But yeah, so that is the main forward command point, and then if you want a more centered flying point, so you get a more zoomed out view of the end caps and whatnot. This is where the beacon's contained, so that's set up, but it's all hollow and all shell. So it took a long time to work out the exterior, and I still don't know what I'm going to do with the internal space. But there's a lot of space in here, so if you want to do an interior or whatnot, you're welcome to. These are the rotors that attach the pinstriping, the back pinstriping. Because it's built on half block, there is no actual way to define the double stripe pinstriping without doing it in small grid, so that's what that is there. But yeah, so I didn't want to set up the exact same thing in the captain's chair for the saucer section control, so I set up the controls just slightly different, and the only thing different is the actual option to shoot the weapons. So that way, if I'm flying from this point and I want to just turn the photons on, just shoot at stuff, or if I want to turn on certain phaser banks, it's all named and grouped and whatnot. So you can set anything up any way you want. And if you really want to get a look at how I set up everything up, then just go press LB RB select, and then go and turn on the eye to see everything that's turned off, but everything that's named and whatnot. And that's all set up so when you're trying to set the vessel as an enemy vessel, it's not selecting things that we don't want to get targeted, and also you don't have to scroll through like for a minute. So yeah. So the setup, you can set things up kind of in this chair how you want, but yeah, you get a more zoomed out view of the end caps, and then a bit of a more centered view. This is actually dead center right after the neck, the location of this captain's chair. So when you spawn in the ship, it will spawn in as a station. Probably should have mentioned that a little bit ago, but yeah, so you're going to need to convert to ship. Now actually I want to talk about a little bit of a glitch. So there's a very rare bug in Space Engineers where if you have so much small grid in PCU and whatnot, it will glitch the actual total presence of the ship. So when I go to the entity list and I go to Work in Progress, Strange New Worlds, Enterprise, it's actually showing up as far as the block count in the PCU, not for the entire ship and everything combined with it, but the impulse engine. So the impulse engine assembly is so big, it's so block heavy, and it's so PCU heavy that it triggered a bug that now makes the entity list think that the whole ship is just the impulse engine. If that's understandable. So yeah, when you look at the thing in the entity list, it's in a zoomed in view because it's trying to show the impulse engine instead of viewing it and seeing like the whole ship like you would with any other thing. So that it's annoying, but it's not it doesn't really do anything. It doesn't harm anything. It's just a bug that I wanted to share because it exists and it's annoying. But anyway, so yeah, so you're gonna want to take it out of station and whatnot, because you won't be able to fly it until you take the ship out of station mode. But the whole reason why is because there is subgrids. Even though I've done absolutely everything I can to prevent drift, it just ensures that the ship won't have any drift. Because Clang, when Clang has its way, the ship will drift and it will spin and it will flip and it will rotate, it'll do all of that, and when you just spawn in, you want it perfectly parked or whatnot, yeah. But it's as simple as just pressing select, going to that, and like converting, right? So hopefully you know that, but if you don't, just press LB or RB select, go from control panel to info, and yeah. So now it's out of station, you can fly the ship, and so the mods I use here on Xbox is Sking's tiered reaction thrusters and his tiered mod pack. So the 2 reactors, the various tier 5 batteries, the tier 5 gyroscopes, the tier 2, I can't remember if I used tier 2 or 3 reaction thrusters. Those are all mods, right? And they're all located in the cells. So if you spawn this thing in and like you download this on Mod.io and you spawn it in on PC or something on Steam, and you don't have these mods, when you spawn it in, there's still a battery, like a normal vanilla battery inside the saucer section, so it will have power, everything will be online, you can access the doors and all that, but you'll need to switch things out inside of the actual warp nacelles and whatnot. But yeah, so if you spawn this thing in Xbox or PC and you just have all the mods that I listed, it flies quite reasonably. So the turning and the acceleration isn't too crazy, and the turning's perfect. It's not too uncontrollable. But yeah, it's a good balance because Tier 5 would like have the thing go from 0 to 1,000 in an instant. But if you're still limited to 100 speed, then this acceleration will be absolutely insane. And also the thing with this mod is it's instant stop, pretty much. So yeah, also you might hear things clanging around and whatnot. It's not a problem, but that is something that can be annoying to hear when you're flying the ship. But you know, this quality is unrivaled, so you know, it is what it is, right? But yeah, so it flies very nicely. All the weapons, you got your phaser banks where they're supposed to be on the top of the sausage section, on the underside. I wanted to do more with the photons and whatnot as far as representing the actual tubes, but you know, it's a small model at the end of the day. I'm just, you know, crazy with what I do with the space. Yeah, so proud of this thing, man. So proud of it. And the last thing I want to show you guys is something that you might actually not get a look at unless you tear this thing open, and that is to actually see the warp coils. I am so proud. This is my first Constitution class recreation that I've actually done where you can actually see the warp coils and whatnot. My Enterprise D version 3 and Voyager and stuff, they've got all the TNG warp coils in it, but yeah, this is my first Constitution class that I've released that actually has completely accurate warp nacelles as far as the internal technology goes. And it's still not 100% perfect, but as far as making use of the available space inside of the large grid, it's as accurate as can be using internal cutaways of it. So you've got a sort of cylinder area thing, and then that runs into this, and then the main piece de resistance is all of the warp coils, and then you've got all the technology that runs into the Bizarre collectors. This would be all the sort of different cylinders and whatnot that you see behind the domes, and then that runs in. I actually use blast doors as well. I used blast doors throughout the design, so it's even more durable than heavy armor, right? So yeah, but you've got a whole blue energy line that runs through the warp coil that does a lot for the actual visual effect when you're looking at the warp coils. The fact that it's connected, and you can see the energy running all the way through the coils. And then you've got red represented for the energy lines that are running through into the Bizarre collectors. Now you might see that there's a bit of a pinkish reflection off of the Bizarre collector domes, and that's because it actually is. So in Strange New Worlds, the Bizarre collector domes, they have like a reddish pinkish coloring to them, and I really wanted to capture that since I am labeling this as a Strange New Worlds Enterprise. But you know, the only difference between the Discovery and the Strange New Worlds Enterprise was that the window alignment was different. And this product here doesn't have windows. Now, I have actually figured out how to lay out all the windows on the sausage section, hull, and neck almost flawlessly. Like, the amount of windows I'm able to represent when compared to the actual amount of windows that are on the ship is insanely close. But maybe I'll release a file for that one day. But yeah. So really proud of how this all laid out. It's super cool. It's a cool thing to consider. And within every single one of these warp coils is either a thruster or a gyro or a battery or something. It's all laid out in a very specific way. You can check out my Twitch channel, and you can go back to the streams where I was actually laying out all of this internal technology. Excuse me. Because, you know, I stream everything live on Twitch. So if you like these designs, you want to see how I actually make them possible, check out my Twitch, and you can follow the build journeys as they come together from scratch. But yeah. So having the warp coils is just an insanely immersive addition to such an incredible exterior. Because when you know, if I were to go and fly into an asteroid and specifically turn into it and rip off a whole chunk of the nacelle, I'd see those warp coils, you know, and it's such an immersive reality. So if you're a Star Trek fan, if you're a Trekkie, trust me, when you're playing with this thing, if you can actually damage the nacelles and see those warp coils, it will feel so good, because it's like, it actually feels real, you know, and the exterior, well, you know, it's as real as it can get, literally. But that's my job, and I take my job very seriously. You know, recreation, it's more than just a hobby to me. It's, you know, very serious about making things exactly the way they're supposed to be. But yeah, so that is my Strange New Worlds Enterprise. I really hope that if you download it, you like it, and if you do like it, please leave a like, comment, and whatnot. It doesn't have a lot of downloads right now, and I definitely want this thing to get exposure and attention. Even though it's not 100% finished, I am extremely proud of this thing. I've put literally 300 hours, somewhere around, give or take, of my life into perfecting this thing. And, same thing with all of my designs. It take hundreds of hours of my time. It may be a choice, but it's work. I this thing would have been released a lot, sooner ago if it wasn't for the Impulse engine, because I dreaded it and I avoided it. I did absolutely everything I could until this was the only thing that really needed to be added, because it was such a complex design, and at the time, even with all the reference material I have, I still couldn't wrap my head around where to start with this design, because it's just so complex and it's so massive. But I eventually figured out. I started with this area and built it from there, built it out from there, figured out everything, and then it's like, oh, this all connects together, and this whole section of the Impulse engine runs into this, and it's like, I all figured it out. But Star Trek ships are very complex, and even for me, some of these designs can be a real challenge. So I hope you appreciate what I do to make up these perfect recreations. And I don't do it for myself, I do it for the community. I do it for myself, but the other people who love Star Trek as well. So that's it for this one. Now the ship is yours to command. Hopefully you'll enjoy. If you do actually do stuff with the internals, whether it be interior or whatnot, I'd be happy to see, what you've actually done with it. Don't re-upload it, because you're gonna have a problem with me. But I'd love to see if anyone actually does interior and whatnot, and then maybe that will give me ideas for what to do with the actual final product when I do actually finish the internal space and the saucer and the hull. But I got a lot of other stuff to work on, so you know what? I spent a lot of time on the Strange New Worlds Enterprise. I'm going to focus on the Enterprise D version 3 or the U.S.S. Majesty or all the other stuff that I've got in the works, which is a lot. And if you want to see what I'm up to and you want to follow those journeys, check out my Twitch, Voiceover Gaming, same as my YouTube. But to you, the viewer, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Thanks for subscribing. Hope you like. If you do, once again, show the love. It'd be appreciated. Share. And yeah, as always, hope to see you in the next video or stream. And see you with the next blueprint. Until then, peace, and live long and prosper.